Slavery was a very powerful institution in the South, culturally, socially, intellectually. Planters dominated the Old South, and their power rested on the institution of slavery.
It's in the plantation setting that slavery can be most fully exploited. It's in those areas that we see slavery become much more ingrained as an economic institution. And it's with both the economic expansion of slavery and the political and philosophical argument defending that institution that we see the two sections that would become the North and the South moving apart.
Of course, slavery didn't affect just Southerners. Economically, the nation benefited. Northern merchants, northern insurers, northern shippers profited from the exportation of cotton to New England and to England and France and Belgium. By 1840, 20 years before the Civil War, 60% of American exports, not Southern exports, but American exports, were cotton, produced mainly by slaves.
Slaveholders held sway in Southern politics, but they could maintain control only as long as they convinced non-slaveholding whites of their common cause.
Racism was used aggressively to divide poorer white Southerners from slaves. The relationship between the wealthy and the poor was something that was really aggressively exploited, I think, by slaveholders to ensure that poorer white Southerners felt that they had a similar cause.
Only about 25% of white households owned a slave, so 75% did not. They didn't own slaves, but they could dream of owning slaves. And if they could dream of owning slaves, they could dream of leaving the fields themselves and allowing slaves to do the farm labor that they and their children did, and withdraw to the veranda perhaps, and even drink mint juleps along with those rich neighbors down the way. But more important, I think, was the psychological satisfaction of being a white person in the South. The fact was that all white men, whether clean and classy or tobacco-stained and ignorant, sat in the social structure at a step or two steps above the most educated, the most refined, the most humane of black people.
In order to quiet the consciences of white Southerners and provide a convincing rationale for the growing system of slavery, slaveholders in the 19th century needed a new definition of slavery. Once considered a necessary evil, slavery was now proclaimed a positive good.
The Negro slaves of the South are the happiest and, in some sense, the freest people in the world. Free laborers have not a thousandth part of the rights and liberties of Negro slaves.
Slavery, Southerners insisted, did a great service to blacks, lifting them out of their natural barbaric states and exposing them to the values of Christian civilization.
That property is in our hands, I believe, by the will of Providence, and the fact of possessing them is justified by the example and language of patriarchs, prophets, and apostles from the day of Abraham to the period of St. John's Revelation.
And as abolitionist attacks in the North grew louder, Southern society closed its ears, outlawing even the publication or discussion of anti-slavery opinions in its midst.